We've all been there, haven't we? That pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
The deadline's coming up fast, you're drowning in data, and there's this little voice,
Yeah, the one that says,
hey, maybe, just
mm,
maybe skip that one validation step. It'll probably be fine.
right, it'll save time and everyone will be so impressed. It's a tempting thought.
It really is. But, in the world of data, those little shortcuts, they can sometimes lead to pretty big problems.
That's putting it mildly sometimes, and that's really what we're digging into today.
Exactly. We've got this story. It's about a data analyst, Olivia, and her dashboard project, which, well, it took a bit of a nosedive. Quite dramatically, actually.
Yeah, but this isn't just about, pointing and laughing. It's packed with lessons. Think of this deep dive as getting all the insights without the actual pain of the experience.
Good way to put it. So whether you're prepping a big data presentation or just trying to make sense of business reports.
Or even if you're just curious about what makes data something you can actually trust.
Olivia's story has got something for you. We're basically unpacking her whole dashboard creation process.
Looking at where things went wrong step by step.
Right. And our mission here is pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what happened with Olivia's dashboard, why it mattered so much.
And crucially, what we can all learn from it to make sure our own data work is solid, reliable, trustworthy.
Okay, let's get into it.
Mm.
So, Olivia, she's described as this rising star data analyst, really good with visualizations.
Right, she could make data look great. And she'd just done this storytelling with data course, apparently.
So she was fired up, full of ideas.
Exactly, you can almost feel that energy, right? Wanting to make an impact. And her ambition was definitely a factor here.
How so?
Well, she set her sights really high. She wanted to build this incredible, comprehensive dashboard for the executive board, something to really wow them.
Okay, makes sense. But here's the turning point, right?
This is it. Driven by that ambition, Olivia made a call, let's say a risky call.
Which is
She decided to skip some steps, some pretty standard important steps.
like what?
Well, no formal sign-off from key people, no early look with the finance team to check the numbers,
Oh,
not even grabbing a colleague for a quick sanity check. She had this mantra, apparently. Greatness waits for no approval chain.
oof. Okay. That sounds bold, maybe a little reckless.
It sounds bold, definitely. But that kind of thinking, it often overlooks why those approval chains exist in the first place, especially with data. It highlights this tension, between individual skill and speed versus the need for process, for collaboration.
So Monday morning rolls around.
Yeah.
The execs log in, expecting insights.
And at first glance, Olivia probably nailed it. The description was stunning. You imagine it looked really slick, interactive.
Made a great first impression.
Totally. But that feeling didn't last long.
Because
Because when they actually started using the dashboard, clicking around, some really, let's say, odd things started popping up. Data points that just made zero sense.
we're not talking small rounding errors here, are we?
Not even close. These were fundamental flaws. Almost comical looking back, though definitely not funny then. Imagine being an exec seeing that one customer in Alaska
Okay.
had apparently bought 14,000 snowblowers.
14,000.
In July.
In July. Right. Okay. Red flag number one, a big one.
Huge. It just destroys credibility instantly. And it didn't stop there.
Oh,
The dashboard was showing Q2 revenue had tripled.
wow. Great news, right?
Well, it would be, except the entire marketing team had spent that whole quarter just redesigning the company logo. No big campaigns, no major product pushes, nothing to explain a tripling of revenue.
So completely out of whack with reality.
Exactly. And then there was the negative inventory turnover.
Negative turnover. That sounds wrong.
It is wrong. It usually points to a major flaw in how data is collected or calculated. But what's really telling is that someone briefly wondered if maybe it was some kind of innovation.
Seriously.
Yeah, it just shows how easily bad data can lead you down completely the wrong path, even making you question basic business logic.
So the mood in that virtual boardroom must have shifted pretty fast.
Dramatically. You had the CFO asking very directly who is responsible for this. That question just cuts right through any initial wow factor.
I can imagine the silence.
And then the VP tries to dig into it using the dashboard itself, and it just falls apart. A filter breaks.
Oh, no.
And a chart suddenly shows, wait for it, a cat meme.
A cat meme. In an executive dashboard.
A cat meme. So not just wrong data, but unstable and, frankly, unprofessional.
Okay, this has gone from bad to worse very quickly. The tool meant for clarity is actively misleading them.
Precisely, and the fallout was immediate. Next thing Olivia knows, she's in a war room meeting. High pressure, everyone's scrambling to figure out what went wrong.
Time to find the bugs.
Exactly, and this is where it gets technically interesting. They start digging and find some pretty concrete errors.
Such as?
Well, first big one, half the data wasn't even live production data. It was pulling from a test environment.
Oh, wow. That's fundamental.
Absolutely. Then, a classic mistake, easy to miss but devastating. A single rogue $sign typed into a key formula somewhere.
Just one character.
Just one character throwing calculations off across the whole dashboard. It shows how meticulous you need to be.
Definitely. Any others?
The final nail, maybe, the top 10 customers chart, meant to show their biggest clients.
Yeah.
It was linked to a data set from training called fake names test.
You're kidding? Fake names
The
test.
fake names test. It's almost unbelievable, but it speaks volumes about the lack of checks, the lack of data governance.
So how did Olivia react when all this came out?
The description is pretty vivid. Her face turned as pale as the conditional formatting on her negative KPIs.
Ouch. Yeah, that paints a picture. The moment of realization.
Mm-hmm. And the consequences were swift. Dashboard pulled immediately. Unusable.
And for Olivia.
Much closer supervision on her work going forward. And this new rule got implemented across the board, very specific.
What was it?
No dashboards go live without 3 levels of review and one final coffee-fueled sanity check.
Okay. Direct response to the problem. A bit bureaucratic, maybe, but understandable.
Totally understandable given what happened.
Okay, so we've seen the disaster unfold and the immediate technical causes. But let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk project management.
Yes, because this wasn't just about technical glitches, was it? The story strongly suggests that skipping basic project management steps was a huge part of the problem.
Right. We need to look at the underlying process failures. Where should we start? Quality management.
Perfect place to start. Quality management, a core part of it, is making sure what you deliver is actually accurate and reliable. You need processes, right? Checklists, peer reviews.
Things Olivia seemed to bypass. There was no formal validation of the dashboard's logic, the data, the calculations.
Yeah.
Nothing before it went live.
Exactly. And if there had been even a basic quality check, someone else just looking over the data connections, the main formula is those huge, glaring errors, like the 14,000 snowblowers.
Or the test data.
They probably would have been caught way before the execs saw them. So a quality management plan isn't just red tape. It's about building confidence, building trust in the numbers.
Makes sense. What about scope management? Validating scope is key, right?
Yeah.
Making sure you're building what people actually ask for.
Absolutely. And it seems like Olivia might have added a bunch of features to the dashboard that the execs never even requested.
The classic gold plating. Adding extra bells and whistles.
Kind of looks like it. And that doesn't just waste time. It adds complexity. More things it can break, like that slicer did, or show cat memes.
Right. More points of failure.
It really forces you to ask, are you building what's truly needed or just what you think looks impressive? Big difference.
Okay. Next. Communications management.
Yeah.
Or the lack thereof, it sounds like.
Yeah, a stakeholder communication plan is crucial. Setting expectations, keeping people in the loop. Olivia seems to have just skipped any kind of preview or feedback stage.
No discussion about format, frequency, who sees it when.
Exactly. And the result? A big, public, embarrassing surprise for everyone. A clear plan would have likely included reviews before the big reveal, catching errors and ensuring it met their needs.
Avoids the public failure. What about risk management?
Another big miss. You've got to think about what could go wrong, identify risks, plan how to deal with them.
And the risk of publishing completely bogus data. That seems like a pretty major one here.
You'd think. But it clearly wasn't identified or mitigated. Simple things like basic data integrity checks.
Like checking the sources live, not test.
Precisely. Or running sanity checks on key numbers. Does revenue tripling make any sense right now? Those basic checks could have flagged the issues immediately. It's about proactive thinking.
Finding problems before they find you. And finally, integration management, specifically change control.
Right. There was basically no formal process for launching this thing, no review gate, no sign-off. It just appeared.
Which led to chaos.
A formal process would have likely mandated those reviews she skipped. It provides structure, minimizes the chance of deploying something broken or wrong.
So pulling it all together, this whole autopsy points to one really crucial lesson, doesn't it?
It really does. That a dashboard isn't just about pretty charts and colors, it's fundamentally a decision-making tool.
And if the tool is wrong,
Then the decisions based on it will be wrong too. Think about the impact of those fake revenue numbers or that inventory mess on actual business strategy. Could be huge.
It brings home that golden rule the source mentioned. Data is only as good as the questions, context, and process behind it.
Exactly. All the fancy visuals in the world don't matter if the data and the process is shaky. It becomes worse than useless. It becomes misleading.
Which leads to that great analogy.
Ah, yes. If your dashboard is flashy but fake, you're not managing a project. You're hosting a magic show.
Ouch. But memorable. It's about reliability, not illusion. Now, we should probably acknowledge mistakes do happen. Even experienced people make errors. We heard about simple typos like customer or revenue sneaking into reports sometimes.
Absolutely. No one's perfect. The real difference isn't if you make mistakes. It's whether you have systems set up to catch them before they blow up publicly.
Like Olivia learned to do afterwards, right?
Yeah.
The story mentions positive changes.
Yes, exactly. She started double-checking formulas religiously, using templates to avoid simple errors, and really insisting on peer reviews for everything, no matter how simple it seemed.
That's the key takeaway, maybe. Making a mistake doesn't make you a bad analyst or manager.
Not at all. Learning from it, putting things in place to prevent it happening again, that's what defines competence.
Which ties into this idea about project management itself. Sometimes people see it as just bureaucracy, something that slows down creativity.
Yeah, that's a common misconception. But the source puts it really well. Project management doesn't stifle creativity, it amplifies it with guardrails.
Guardrails, I like that.
It provides the structure, the safety net that lets you innovate without, driving off a cliff like Olivia sort of did.
And quality management specifically, it's not just about ticking boxes.
No, fundamentally, it's about building trust. If leaders can't trust the numbers you put in front of them, why would they trust your analysis or your recommendations?
Good point. So that urge to skip validation to impress with speed.
Resist it. Impress them with accuracy, with a solid process, with realistic timelines that actually include checks and balances. That builds real credibility long term.
Okay, so let's make this practical for our listeners. We've got a case study challenge.
All right, let's hear it.
Imagine this. You get tasked right now, present a visual dashboard to senior leadership. Deadline, 24 hours.
Okay, tight.
The data set is huge, expectations are sky high, but there's absolutely zero time for your usual full formal review process.
Oof. Okay, that's a pressure cooker, a very familiar pressure cooker for many people, I bet.
So in that situation, we've got 5 questions for you listening to think about. First,
given that crazy deadline, what specific PMP tools or techniques, maybe just 1 or 2 high-impact ones, would you grab first to manage that risk of error?
good one. Second, how do you even begin to balance that need for speed against the absolute necessity of having data that's at least reasonably accurate? Where do you draw the line?
Tricky balance.
Okay.
Third, even with no time, what quick steps, what shortcuts maybe could you take to just make sure the dashboard actually hits the core things the leaders need to
The
see?
stakeholder needs.
Yeah.
Fourth, okay, a full review is out. But who are the absolute must-have people, maybe just 1 or 2, who have to glance at this before it goes live to the execs? Who's your minimum viable review team?
Crucial question. And finally, number 5. Thinking back to Olivia's story, what's the biggest lesson, the most important takeaway from her experience that you would consciously keep in mind while tackling this challenge?
These are definitely tough questions, no easy answers, but thinking them through before you're in that hot seat, that can make all the difference.
It really can, between success and, well, potential disaster.
And just keep that final thought in mind. The most beautiful dashboard in the world means nothing if the data's lying through its filters.
So true. So wrapping up this deep dive, the big message really is about process, isn't it? The importance of rigor, even when you're under pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Applying these project management basics isn't just about avoiding embarrassment, though that's nice too. It's about building trust, making sure your work actually makes an impact.
And saving yourself from those potential dashboard disasters.
Definitely.
So a final thought to leave everyone with, think about the last bit of data you saw, a report, a chart, anything. What processes do you think were behind it, or maybe weren't?
And maybe more importantly, what questions should you start asking about the data you see every day, even when it looks perfectly polished on the surface?